welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and I'm going to be doing something I have never done on my channel before, and that is reacting to someone else's video. And I've thought about doing this a few times because obviously I watch other content creators in this space. You know, I'm not going to be watching TikTok videos or anything. I'm going to be watching a video from EDH Recast. And I guess I'm not watching, and I shouldn't say I'm not reacting in the traditional sense where I just sit there watching their video and go, oh, wow, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm reacting to what they said in the video. And of course, that's a data-driven site, so they talk about the data a lot on the EDH Recast. The video I'm going to be referencing here is Data Update, Most Popular Color Combos, Mana Curves, and More. So it's a data update about all the most popular things going on in the format and least popular, I guess, as well. So if you've seen that video, you will be familiar with the stuff I'm covering. I'm sure a lot of my viewers watch their stuff as well. But I just want to put my 2 cents in here with regards to this because a lot of stuff that I talk about on my channel all the time, I'm not actually going to be playing their video or anything like that. I'm just going to be referencing some of the statistics that they went over in that video. And I'm going to start out with this little tidbit here that they had in the video, which was average mana curve, which I thought was really fascinating. 2018 to 2020 average mana curve 3.51. And, you know, as I say all the time, you know, I've never seen stats like this before. So I love looking at the numbers and stuff like that. That actually sounds a little high for my decks. Even back then for my decks, I would say I was probably a little bit lower than that. I tend to have 3 is always typically my highest, you know, as in number of cards. I don't go super top heavy usually. I also have a lot of 2s. Usually it's, I would say 3 is my highest, then 2, then 4, then maybe 1, maybe 5, depends on the deck. So even 3.5 sounds a little bit higher than what I typically run. But you know, again, Battlecruiser magic, right? 3.51 up until 2020, and then 2020 to 2022, it went quite a bit down to 3.08, which I would say is probably closer to where I'm at. But the really interesting thing here is that 2021 to 2023, it went back up again. I mean, it didn't go way up to 3.5, but it went up. You know, it didn't go down again, which everyone, if you asked any Commander player that trend without actually looking at the stats, they would say, you know, say you just had those years and you asked them to fill in the average mana curve, they probably would. I would be really curious to see what numbers they picked. I mean, I probably, being entirely honest, I probably would have said 3.5 for the first one, and then like 3.1 and then like 3 or something, because you would assumed it'd be trending down continuously. The fact that it went up is very interesting the last couple of years. What I think they mentioned in the video, one of the reasons they think that might be is because mana rocks, everyone was switching from 3 mana to 2 mana mana rocks. Certainly I don't play hardly any 3 mana rocks at all, but a lot of people have started to go back to 3 mana rocks because of the stuff that's giving you another advantage. Like the Canter of Endless Water is a really popular mana rock in the format. Patriarch Seal is another one. I guess those are both from Baldur's Gate, right? So those are 2 3 mana rocks that people have started putting in their decks more and more and more. And that might have affected it a little bit, right? Interesting theory. I don't know if that's actually the case. It's a really interesting statistic to look at, though, for sure. Next, I want to look at the average number of legends in decks, right? So in the 99, we're not talking about our commander here, we're talking about in the 99. And this is, again, very interesting statistic. They go by the same grouping of years here. 2018 to 2020, total legends 5.9. So that means the total amount of not legendary creatures. And when I first saw this, I was like, that's a lot of legendary creatures for a deck. No, it's just legendary permanents in general. I mean, I guess you can have legendary spells, but essentially legendary permanents. And that partly will explain why this number has gone up so much. I mean, the obvious reason, and I guess if we look at the numbers here, it's 5.9, then it goes to 8.9 and 9.6. So it is almost doubled, I guess, pretty close to doubled in the last like 4 years. And the legendary creatures, though, they split that up. So it used to be that you only had 2 legendary creatures in the 99 on average. And of course, that's not a lot, but it was harder to fit a legendary. I mean, incidentally, you might just have a legendary creature that did something that fit your deck like a Lorna the Third Path for some, that's artifact and enchantment removal. That's a creature you could put in any white deck. It just happens to be a legendary creature. But of course, because we've been printing more and more commanders, that's going to increase the chances that we do this. And it's going to also increase the chances that you have a legendary creature that fits something you want to be doing. And again, it could be, I have a Kogla in my deck just because I have a creature there that is going to, it's artifact and enchantment removal and also creature removal, just happens to be a legendary creature. Or you could have, and I just talked about this in a video about really unpopular commanders, the most unpopular we've had this year. I talked about a bunch of commanders in that set that fit great in the 99 decks. Monstrosity of the Lake, for example, which is a card that a lot of people will likely, and I have myself, put in their decks, like maybe their mono blue decks, just because it's got the island cycling. So now you have increased the amount of legendary creatures in your deck. But of course, the main reason is because we just got so many legendary creatures. And again, like I talked about in my 10 deck ideas video, which I don't know if it's come out yet, a number of commanders you can put in your deck just because it fits the theme of what you're doing, like an Izzet Spellslinger deck, right? Any Izzet Spellslinger deck is probably likely going to have 3 or 4 legendary creatures in there, maybe more, just because there's so many commanders that are doing that theme, right? The legendary permanent thing is really interesting, though. And again, what they talked about in that video is the lands. We've had a lot of lands, especially the ones, I would say the Neon Dynasty ones, Iganjo and Boseiju and all of that. Those ones for sure people have been shoehorning. I know I have been shoehorning those into decks as much as they can. So that's going to bump up that total legends number quite a bit more as well. So pretty interesting statistic, I think. Another really interesting one, and one I talk about on my channel all the time, is top commander balances. So this is the statistic that to me is the most shocking overall. It's shocking, but also not surprising, if that makes any sense, right? So the top 179 commanders equal 930,432 decks. And the other, so what's left, so that would be the total commanders in the entire format, I guess. 1,425 commanders equals 929. So essentially the same, a little bit less, but essentially the same. So that means the top 179 commanders, the real popular ones, the Corvolds and the Atraxes and all that, are taking up half of all the decks in the format, right? This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about on my channel all the time about, everyone just loves those popular commanders. And so those are the ones you see all the time. And I just really like seeing different ones. And again, I've said it many times, but I will say it once again. I think there is a huge advantage there. It's more interesting. It's more fun. I think you're not doing what everyone else is doing. I guess that plays into it a little bit, but more so it is a strategic advantage because I show up at a table. I have a commander people have never seen before. They don't know what to expect. They're not going to be prepared for what I'm doing likely. And I'm not going to be a target because I'm not playing one of those super popular commanders, right? So that's, again, strategic advantage, but also you avoid things like this that I don't particularly love. I don't love seeing the same commanders all the time. I like to mix it up. There's 1,400 commanders out there that aren't getting a lot of love or could certainly be getting a lot more, right? And I like to contribute to that as much as I can. Now, of course, this statistic is from last year, okay? They redid it again this year, and this year gotten even worse, I would say. I mean, not a lot worse, but still worse. It certainly hasn't gotten better, right? So now you have the top 212 commanders with 1.5 million decks, and then the other 1657, whatever's left, again, 1.5 million decks. So the numbers obviously are a little bit higher, but 1.5 million, essentially the same, right? If we did a little bit of math here, we would see that, let's see if I can do this in my head very easily. We got 21 plus 12, 33. So we've gained 33 commanders on the top heavy side, and we've gained 232 on the bottom side. So I think that's probably worse, right? If we did a ratio there, I'll throw the numbers up on the screen of the ratio there from last year and this year. I think it's likely gotten worse. And this is one of the things I talked about on my end of the year video last year about, okay, well, they're printing 400 commanders in a year or whatever. That's a good thing, right? The upside there, I know it's a little bit overwhelming, and especially for a content creator. The upside, though, is because we have so many more commanders, now it's less likely I'm going to see a Gishath in every single game, or it's less likely that I'm going to see an Atraxa in every single game or whatever, right? However, You know, now it's like, okay, well, I'm going to see an Ishin in every single game, you know, or whatever. I'm going to see a Miram in every single, you know. Now you just replaced the new popular commanders in that scenario, right? So I thought maybe it would fix that situation. Printing all these commanders might spread things out a little bit more, but it hasn't really. Now we just have 212 commanders that we're going to be seeing all the time rather than 179. So it hasn't really changed that much. So, what can you do? All right, let's talk about the deck color trends. And this hasn't really changed that much. Monocolor, and again, I like to look, you know, whether the change is significant or not. It's not really that significant. The actual numbers, though, I find are pretty fascinating. So monocolored, 2020 to 2022, it was 17.2%, which I'm actually surprised how high that is. I didn't think it would be that high. In 2021, 23, 17.58. So really hasn't changed a whole lot. It actually went up a little. That's a little surprising. But again, the influx of all those commanders has made it possible, right? We've had more, you know, it used to be, I would say that especially the monocolor commanders were super top heavy because you had like a few monocolor commanders that were really, really good, and then the rest were all really terrible. So the only people that played monocolor decks are the people that are playing the popular ones. Now we're getting really, really good, you know, or at least a lot better monocolored commanders, and I think that's why it's enticed people to play monocolored commanders more, I think. So that's good. Two color being the most popular, which is not surprising at all. If I had to guess, again, that's what I would have said. Two, maybe three color. Of course, 2 and 3 are pretty close. The interesting thing here, though, is that two color is the only one that went down, and it actually is the most significant change, almost 1%. Again, not a lot, but that's probably quite a bit of decks. And what's the explanation there? I don't know. You know, it's weird. 0.82% down for two color decks, whereas monocolor decks actually went up a little bit. So pretty interesting. The rest haven't really changed that much. But again, to me, the interesting thing is the actual numbers. 5 color is at just about 7%. And of course, a lot higher than 4 color because you really don't have that many colors. You know, it's funny to think that you have so many more 5 color commanders to choose from than you do 4 color. You hardly don't have any 4 color. I'm actually surprised 4 colors that high because in most color combinations, there's only one commander for those colors, right? In most of the 4 color combinations. I guess you have the partner pairings, so you do have a few other options there. But again, those aren't super popular either. By the way, with all of these color combinations, and I'm going to talk about a few more of these statistics with regards to color combinations to close out this video, I made my color combinations. And again, they don't talk about the actual ranking of color combination popularity here. I'm sure you could find it somewhere on their site. I did my version of that, and I think I got it pretty bang on. You can go check out that video where I ranked all the different color combinations in the format according to how popular they are, right? And as we look at some of these charts, I think it will be pretty accurate to what I had. So the monocolors, these are the most popular monocolors, of course, all the monocolors, but in ranking of how popular they are, black's number 1. Again, not surprised by that at all. That would definitely be my guess. And again, as we get more to this is just the monocolor. This is not the most popular colors, but I would say black is the most popular color period in the entire format. And again, as we look at these other charts, I will give my reasoning to why I think that is. I mean, I don't think anyone could make that argument, and I don't think you would be far off, right? Red being number 2 is pretty surprising, and it's actually even pretty close to black. Remember, this is not the most popular color in the format. This is the most popular monocolor, right? So these are the monocolor decks, white being last, no big surprise there. Sorry, I guess colorless is last. So colorless obviously last. White is the last actual color if you're not including colorless. But again, blue being second to last, or I guess third to last, and red being second from the top is kind of surprising. You know, again, if you asked me this without me looking at this chart, I would say black, then green. Again, we're not talking about the most popular colors. We're talking about the most popular monocolored decks. So this means there are more mono red decks floating around there than there are mono green. Maybe, yeah, okay, that makes sense. This chart, though, again, 5-6 years ago would be completely different. Green might have been number 1. Green and black would have been real close. I saw a lot of mono green decks because, again, it was very easy to play a mono green deck, and you could very easily close out the game with the all the win cons that mono green decks had. You had obviously a lot of card draw. You didn't have a lot of issues with a lot of things in a mono green deck. So that's why they were pretty popular. And there was a lot of great mono green commanders. Blue was a lot more popular. You know, typically you would just do I just load my deck up with counter spells, and you know, that's just not fun. People don't really like playing against it, and then people don't really like playing really with it either. They don't, you know, that strategy is not a really fun one to play. So maybe that's why blue has dropped off here. White still, you know, again, I'll just say, guys, white is, in my opinion, one of the best colors in the entire format now. I think and I'm actually going to make a video about this coming up. If you think about the things that are really important in the format, it's the best at removal by a mile. It is pretty darn good at card draw now. Every single set we get another, you know, in my opinion, it's one of the best. Honestly, I'll just say it. I think it's one of the best. If you look at just generically good card draw in the format, Esper Sentinel, Archivist of Ogma are two of the best, I think. And they can go in any white deck. And then after you get past those two, you can start fitting in the stuff that fits your strategy, for which there's lots in a white deck, right? Ramp, it's the second best color at ramp in the format. I don't know. I think it's climbing. It's definitely climbing as far as the best color in the format. But anyway, monocolored decks, pretty interesting to look at. Let's check out the two color decks. And this one is the one that is, for me, the most surprising. And it's funny considering what I just talked about. Okay, so let's start at the top. No surprises here. And again, if you go look at my color combinations video, Dimir is the third? No, it's second. That's right. 5 colors, number 1. Number 2 is Dimir. Dimir is the second most popular color combination in the entire format. That's right. The second most popular color combination in the entire format. Wow, right? Again, when you say that, and when I first crunched all the numbers, I was like, Dimir, what? What's going on there? But then you go look at the commanders there, and it's like, yeah, okay, that kind of makes sense. Golgari number 2 is, again, not super surprising. I would, again, probably say black and green are the most popular colors in the entire format. So the combination of the two makes sense. There's also, again, some really, really great commanders. I think this is maybe the best color pairing. If you think about what you need to be doing in the format, and then also what is available to you in a commander game, black and green just really not a lot of holes in the game. Plus, there's just a lot of fun, neat things you can do in those colors. You know, a lot of people think of graveyard strategies and sacrificing and stuff, but there's actually a lot of different things you can do in those color pairings. Simic number 3, you know, again, this probably used to be a lot higher. It's dropped off a little. You'd have to go check. I think I had Izzet above Simic, maybe. Like with my statistics, I didn't count the bottom commanders. So I only counted, I think, the top 12 because I didn't want the colors that had more commanders to have an unfair advantage. So I don't know if they just included all the decks here, how they counted this, but I mean, I guess this is a percentage. So it's not, they're not counting the amount of decks. This is actually, so I would imagine this adds up to 100%, right? So of all of the 2 color decks out there, 13% of them are Dimir, 12% are Golgari, right? I think that's what they're doing here. And Selesnya being my favorite 2 color combination and the only 2 color combination for which I actually have 2 decks, because I don't really like to have more than 1 deck in any given color combination. It's even less popular than Boros. Isn't that incredible? That is incredible. Why so unpopular? The most significant, like, what do you notice about this chart, though? I was watching the video and I'm like, wait a minute. You know, like, what's the first thing that really grabs you when you look at this chart? All of the white color combinations are at the bottom. Wow. People really don't like white, eh? The Orzhov, Azorius, Boros, and Selesnya are all the bottom 4. They're all at 8%. What's with that? Come on, guys. Why? Like, I just finished talking about how good white is, all these different things. You know, there's more that plays into it. It isn't just about that color. It's about the commanders in that color, right? So, for example, I think I talked about Azorius in that color combinations video, how it was really I think I maybe had this. Maybe this was my least popular 2 color combination. And it wasn't that this was a bad color combination or people didn't like it. What it was there just wasn't a lot of great Azorius commanders. There certainly is a lot more now, like it has been climbing, but it was hurting for good commanders, right? That plays into it as well. Again, that's why Dimir's number 1. Dimir's not number 1 because it's the best 2 color combination. It's number 1 because, I mean, yeah, black and blue are pretty good in the format and people like counter spells and people like tutors. But also, there's just a lot of really, really great, really popular, really powerful Dimir commanders. So that's why it's at the top. And finally, the 3 color combinations. And again, I'm thinking of my video, and maybe I should have looked at it before I did this video, as far as the most popular color combinations, Dimir was actually above Esper. I think I had Mardu as the second most popular 3-color combination. It was ahead of Grixis. Of course, that was back in January I did that video, so obviously things could have changed since then. We've gotten a lot of commanders since then. We've gotten, one, two, three, four, 5 sets since then at least. Lord of the Rings had like over 100 commanders, so obviously these numbers could have changed. I think, man, Naya being above Sultai, who's surprised by that? That's probably the one that surprises me. Like, what surprises me the most here? Abzan at the bottom doesn't surprise me. It surprised me when I did my color combinations video back in January, but when I did that video, mine was the same. Abzan was the least popular 3-color combination. It was way at the bottom. In fact, there was only a few that were below it. It has climbed a little here. It looks like it's almost caught up to Jeskai, because immediately the set after that, we got Phryxia All Will Be One, which had a couple of great Abzan commanders. So that, and again, that's why. Even though Abzan is a great color combination, there wasn't a lot of great, we had like Carador and all these old commanders that were still the most popular Abzan commanders. So we got some new ones, so that's going to help a little bit here. Jeskai, second from the bottom, is a little surprising. But again, you look at all these others and you're like, well, who should be at the bottom? They're all great. So who would be at the bottom? I think the most surprising for me, I think Grixis being second from the top is pretty darn surprising. Naya being this high, above Sultai, that is surprising. But again, let's start looking at those commanders, right? You got Gishath and you got Atla Palani, and you got some really popular commanders in there, Rin and Ciri, for sure. So I guess it kind of makes sense. But the last thing I will point out here, as I mentioned when I first talked about the monocolored decks, what's the trend you notice here? The top 3-color combinations, what do they have in common? They all have black, right? We got black and blue at the top here. We got black, blue, and red, and then we got red and black. So we got 2 reds, 2 blues, and 2 whites, but 3 blacks. No green, by the way. That's also pretty interesting, right? That's the kind of things I notice when I look at these. Those top 3-color combinations, there's no green. 3 black, though. They all have black. And again, if we go back and look at the 2-color combinations, right? The top 2 both have black. We got a black and a blue and a black and a green. And again, the top monocolor was also black. So it's pretty easy looking at those to say, I think it's likely that black is the most popular color overall, right? If we're taking everything into consideration here, black, I'd say, is easily the most popular color in the entire format. So there you go. Just some interesting statistics that I thought I would react to. I guess I'm not really reacting to the video. Maybe people thought I was going to actually react to that video. I'm not going to do that. That's not really what I do on my channel, obviously, but really interesting statistics. Of course, I got to give a shout out to EDH Rec, but I do that on my channel almost on a weekly basis. And again, you guys can go check out that video. I'll put it in the description if you actually want to watch them talk about it, because they talk about it more at length than I do. But again, I reference that site a lot. I reference statistics like this a lot. There was some very interesting things in that video that I wanted to cover myself. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below, but that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.